I spent the 2 months of summer vacation living a blissful, leisurely life with my flash marriage wife. However, I hadn't touched a single page of my physics homework. Just after my wife and I finished making love, I heard the greatest news in the world. My physics teacher had unexpectedly resigned. Finally, I didn't have to scramble to make up for my missing assignments. I was so thrilled I could have flown, but my flash marriage wife was secretly laughing behind my back. She softly asked if I really hated my physics teacher that much. I replied that it wasn't that. Mr. Vance was a good guy, but I just couldn't wrap my head around physics. I then asked if she knew why Mr. Vance had suddenly quit. Celeste, who usually wasn't the gossipy type at all, asked why. I told her that the old man had announced right in front of the class that his daughter was obsessed with men, neglecting her duties and leaving no one to manage their company, so he had to go back and take over personally. Who knew that after hearing this, Celeste would frown and mutter about how her dad was out there ruining her reputation? Before I could even process her reaction, she continued, saying that in that case, I really ought to thank his man-crazy, negligent daughter. I wholeheartedly agreed, looking completely relieved and debt-free. I told her that thanks to his disappointing daughter, I was finally escaping that sea of suffering early. Celeste spoke up to remind me that Mr. Vance simply wasn't teaching our class anymore, not that the course itself had been canceled. I scoffed, refusing to believe I'd be unlucky enough to get another exceptionally strict teacher. I even joked, wondering if we might get a beautiful female teacher instead. Celeste, who currently had zero tolerance for the word beautiful, instantly warned me to watch what I was doing and to remember my identity as a married man. I quickly surrendered. I still couldn't leave my wife's embrace. After all, I still wanted to hold her slender waist that night. When I woke up the next morning, I was the only one left in the house. There was a note left for me on the dining table from Celeste, telling me she had gone to work and to be a good boy and eat my breakfast. As the bell rang, the classroom fell silent for about 3 seconds before instantly erupting into chaos. Someone yelled to give them 3 minutes, demanding to know all the information about this woman. I instinctively looked up at the woman standing at the podium, and my heart fiercely jolted. It was Celeste. Then, completely possessed by some ghost, I shouted out loud, "Wife!" In the next second, the gazes of the entire class shot toward me. Realizing something was wrong, my best friend hurriedly stood up to explain, apologizing to the teacher and claiming that my brain wasn't working right, making me uncontrollably call any beautiful woman my wife. Celeste paused slightly, then advised that boys should be a bit more reserved. She then introduced herself, stating her name was Celeste, and explained that Mr. Vance had temporarily left the university due to a job transfer. She announced that she would be teaching our senior physics course moving forward. Regarding the class and grading structure, she mentioned she had already communicated with Mr. Vance and would use his established rules to determine our final grades. Hearing these words, my head felt like it had been viciously punched. My wife had just become my teacher. Wasn't she working at the university in the capital? How did she suddenly end up here at our Southern University? This was truly the last year of college, and I had managed to stumble into a student-teacher romance. It was ridiculously absurd. She continued, saying that Mr. Vance had already emailed her the homework assignments and asked the class representative to bring them to her office, room 803, later. She noted that for the few students who hadn't brought their assignments, the latest they could hand them into her office was tomorrow morning. At that moment, one of the students in the class spoke up and said, "Ma'am, even a 3-day extension would help. It would give us enough time to finish the work and make up for the delay." But then she added that if the homework wasn't in her office by 10 o'clock tomorrow morning, 50% of the daily performance grade would be deducted, just as Mr. Vance had warned before the summer break. I really wanted to storm the podium and fiercely interrogate her right then and there. Weren't those few students just me? She had literally just watched me gloating over my luck yesterday. At this moment, a boy was already impatiently activating his social mode, asking if it was convenient to add her on a messaging app. Celeste replied to forget about the messaging app, but noted her work email was always online during working hours. Since today was their first meeting, she said everyone was welcome to ask any questions. Someone immediately asked if Professor Celeste was single. Her gaze seemingly swept over me as she replied that she was not single. She was already married and had just gotten her marriage certificate recently. She promised to hand out wedding candies when we graduated, and expressed her hope for a pleasant cooperation over the coming year. The moment she said this, the entire class boiled over again. Although I looked as steady as an old dog on the outside, a turbulent storm was raging in my heart, and I was gripping my pen so hard I nearly crushed it. When I opened the class group chat, the group name had already been changed to I Want to Marry Celeste. Someone commented that although she was strict, you just couldn't deny her high aesthetic appeal. I thought to myself, how could such a high-quality wife not fall into my lap? Just wait until we get home. I'll deal with you. When Celeste arrived home that evening, she didn't find me on the first floor. She walked up to the second floor, only to discover that I had locked the door to the master bedroom from the inside. A small quilt and a pillow had been placed on the bed in the guest room. It seemed she had been kicked out of the master bedroom. She called out to me, Cassian, asking me to open the door. I pretended not to hear her. She asked if I really wasn't going to come out, mentioning that a new barbecue place had opened on her way home from work, and she had bought some. She asked if I wanted to try it. Having not eaten dinner yet, I hopelessly yelled at the door, asking what she bought and demanding to see it. She listed off lamb skewers, sizzling fat, and pork belly. This wretched woman really knew how to manipulate me. They were all my favorites. After I opened the door and saw this woman's beautiful face, I really wanted to give it a hard pinch. I took the barbecue from Celeste's hands as she sweetly asked if her husband was still angry, coaxing me not to be mad anymore. I told Celeste not to call me her husband, stating I wasn't her husband. I accused her of knowing full well I hadn't done my homework yesterday and just watching me make a fool of myself, asking if she did it on purpose. She reminded me that my precious wife had warned me not to push my luck. I retorted, asking if I was supposed to thank her then. Seeing my angry expression, Celeste couldn't help but curl her red lips into a smile. She sweetly called me her precious Cassian and reminded me to hand in my homework on time tomorrow. Her smug expression was infuriating. She then added that even if I started writing right now, I probably wouldn't be able to finish it, and cheered me on. She told me she was going to have a meeting in the study and to look for her there if I needed anything, leaving her precious Cassian to finish his homework on his own. I turned my grief into a hearty appetite. After eating my fill, I started worrying about my homework again. Sure enough, when a person is hungry, their only worry is food, but once full, they have countless troubles. Opening the assignment, I was instantly dumbfounded. Not only was the workload absurdly massive, but the key issue was that I didn't know how to solve a single problem. I knew Celeste was a very principled person. If I really couldn't hand in the homework tomorrow, she would definitely deduct my performance points. Forget it, I thought. Asking for help isn't a shameful thing, especially when it's from your own woman. I knocked on the study door and walked right in, pleading for my wife to help me. Celeste was in the middle of a video meeting, and the people on the other side of her screen erupted into a chorus of teasing noises. Only then did I belatedly realize what I had just done, and I fled from the study in a panic. A minute later, Celeste found me with my head buried under the blankets. She asked what I wanted and told me to hurry up and come out, assuring me that they hadn't seen a woman, so I didn't need to be embarrassed. I muttered that they had still heard my voice. She brushed it off, saying it didn't matter if they heard. After all, she was my wife, so what was wrong with calling her wife? Only then did I crawl out and wrap my arms around the woman, begging her, for the sake of our marriage, to please give my homework a slight extension. Celeste admitted to herself that she was secretly thrilled by the word wife. Suppressing the smile at the corners of her mouth, she refused. I asked her if she was still my wife. She affirmed she was, but reiterated what she had said in class today. Homework is a matter of principle. She pointed out that for someone like me, who hadn't written a single word, it would mean an 80% deduction. I complained that she was going too far and asked if a 50% deduction wouldn't suffice. I reminded her that I was still short 3 credits, and if she really deducted 80%, I honestly wouldn't be able to graduate. She smiled, calling me husband, and told me that the deduction of my daily score was set in stone. If I wanted to earn it back, it would depend entirely on her Cassian's performance. I lowered my eyes and gently dropped a kiss on the corner of the woman's lips. She quickly told me, Student Cassian, that seduction was not going to work, and mentioned she'd heard I call every pretty woman my wife. I stubbornly confirmed it, saying that yes, I call all beautiful women my wife. I told Professor Celeste to go ahead and deduct whatever performance points she wanted, adding that at worst, I'd just get married one more time before graduation to earn another 5 social credits. I declared that from today onward, we were strictly in a student-teacher relationship, so it was best to keep our distance, whether at school or at home. During Professor Celeste's tenure, I suggested she stick strictly to her duties and sleep properly in the guest room. She agreed, adding that if her precious Cassian ever missed his wife, he could come find her in the guest room. I scoffed, asking if I was that desperate and why I would ever look for her. Furthermore, I demanded that she stop wearing those torn black stockings to class. She teased, asking if Cassian was jealous. She agreed to listen to her husband and only wear them at home, exclusively for my eyes. After she finished speaking, I locked the door and went to sleep. My physics major had 3 massive lectures a week, and surprisingly, they were all scheduled within the first 3 days. It really left a person with no way to survive. I glared at the wretched woman on the podium. Sure enough, she wasn't wearing black stockings today. Before starting the lecture, she addressed the summer homework issue, noting there were still 5 students who hadn't submitted their assignments and would have 50% of their daily performance grade deducted. She then specifically mentioned student Cassian, stating that he hadn't written a single word of his summer homework and would face an 80% deduction. She expressed her hope that everyone would take this as a warning and complete their homework on time in the future. 80%! Even if I got a perfect score on the final exam, I'd still fail the course. The class started whispering, wondering if the professor had some kind of grudge against Cassian. She then added that students who had points deducted could earn some back by actively interacting during class and completing subsequent assignments on time. Seeing how she was deliberately making things difficult for me, my dorm brothers from room 506 mentally gave her a terrible review. During class, no matter how much I disliked listening, I forced myself to pay attention, terrified of having another 10 points deducted. At noon, while resting in the dorm, everyone was worried about my credits. I heard that there was a freshman welcome gala next Saturday, and anyone who participated and performed would receive 2 social credits. I instantly perked up. As soon as classes ended, I called my mom and asked her to mail my guitar. However, when I opened the package at home, I discovered the guitar had been crushed during transit. When Celeste came home, I was trying to fix it. She asked what was wrong. I explained I was participating in the welcome gala next week and needed to perform, but somehow it broke when my mom sent it today. Looking at the state of the guitar, Celeste guessed it couldn't be fixed anytime soon. She assured me it was fine and offered to take it to get repaired tomorrow, though it would probably take a few days. I told her not to bother, saying I could just borrow one from the music club. Celeste didn't say anything else. She simply packed the broken guitar back up and set it by the door. She asked what made me want to join the freshman gala. I curled my lip, pointing out that because the ruthless Professor Celeste had deducted 80% of my performance grade, I had no choice but to perform at the gala to make up my credits. With that, I turned around and headed up to the 2nd floor, took a shower, and prepared for a beautiful, undisturbed sleep. Suddenly, Celeste pushed the door open and walked in, standing at the foot of the bed holding her pillow. I asked who let her in, reminding her of my rule that whether at school or at home, we were strictly teacher and student, and told her to go sleep in the guest room. I mentally urged myself to stay strong and absolutely not go soft on this wretched woman. She pouted, asking if her husband really didn't want to hold her to sleep, teasing that she was soft and very huggable, and hinting that other places weren't off limits either. I refused, telling her I didn't want her. Celeste knew I was just being stubborn. She walked over, slowly leaned down, and her slender fingers grabbed my arm as she slipped right into my embrace. She whispered, asking if I had missed her over the past 3 days. I was completely mesmerized and enchanted by her. She praised her precious Cassian for being so good. The next day, when I came home from school, I saw a brand new guitar sitting in the living room. Celeste was in the kitchen cooking. I asked why she had bought such an expensive guitar when I had already told her I only needed it for the welcome gala. She said it didn't matter, noting that it was rare for me to perform and that I could play it at home in the future. She told me to practice well over the next couple of days, promising she would go watch me on the night of the gala. Thinking about Celeste's soaring popularity at the university these past few days, I knew if she attended the gala, she would definitely attract a massive horde of fans. I told Professor Celeste to just stay in her office and prepare her lessons, insisting she shouldn't go to the gala. She asked if her husband just didn't want to see her. Ever since Celeste started teaching here, the school forum had been flooded with explicit comments. Someone even offered a hefty sum willing to keep her at home as a pet. I angrily asked her if she had any idea how many people were after her, accusing her of just wanting to attract unwanted attention. Celeste, of course, knew her husband was jealous. She asked her husband to tell her how exactly she was attracting attention. I retorted that dressing so nicely and making herself look so incredibly beautiful all day was exactly that. She was secretly delighted, realizing that being praised by her husband felt exactly like this. She agreed, promising to listen to her husband and not dress up so beautifully anymore. Then she added, if her Cassian was truly afraid she'd be snatched away by someone else, he should buy her a ring to wear at all times, so others would know her married status. Only then did it hit me. We had been married for almost 3 months, and I hadn't given Celeste a single gift yet. I decided to wait until after the welcome gala was over, then go pick out a proper gift for her. After all, my fate of whether I could smoothly graduate was still clutched in this wretched woman's hands. After a few days of practice, coupled with my solid fundamentals, my guitar rehearsals went exceptionally well. The night before the performance, I nervously reviewed the sheet music over and over, terrified of making a mistake. Celeste came home very late. I asked her why she was just getting back. She replied that she went to prepare a gift for her precious Cassian. The moment I heard there was a gift, my eyes lit up, and I eagerly asked what it was. She pulled a beautifully packaged box from behind her back. I rubbed my eyes in disbelief. It was a piece personally designed by the renowned designer Sterling, something rarely ever sold. The level of craftsmanship was so exquisite I had only ever admired it from a distance at fashion shows. I told her I didn't even dare to wear it, afraid of what would happen if I got it dirty. Celeste pinched my cheeks, calling me a fool, and assured me it was a gift for me, no returns needed. It was mine now. She asked if her husband wanted to try it on. 2 minutes later, I walked out of the walk-in closet, and Celeste's eyes were completely glued to me. I asked if it looked good. She praised it, saying it looked incredibly good and extremely handsome. I thanked my wife. Seeing the tips of my ears turning red, she stood on her tiptoes and gave me a kiss. On the night of the welcome gala, with my already solid foundation and days of diligent practice, I executed my musical piece perfectly. However, after all the performances had ended, I still hadn't caught sight of Celeste. That wretched woman. Just because I told her not to come, did she really not show up? She didn't even watch my performance. Walking out toward the back gate of the university, I pulled open the car door and was immediately greeted by an enormous bouquet of fresh flowers. She congratulated me on my hard work and a successful performance. This was the first time I had received flowers since my high school graduation. Yet, I still felt a pang of regret since she hadn't seen my performance with her own eyes. I looked down, scrolling idly on my phone, and tapped the little red notification bubble on my social media feed. I stammered, asking if she had actually gone to see my performance. Celeste's social media post was a photo of me during my set, accompanied by the caption that the full moon gathers among the starry sky. It had been taken from the very back row of the management stands. I asked if she had blocked the other university teachers from seeing her posts. She explained that this specific account was solely for family contacts, and she didn't use it for work. I conceded. She certainly was cautious enough. With that, any lingering regrets completely vanished. Today was supposed to be a beautiful day, but no matter how beautiful the day is, it can't stop someone from digging their own grave. Perhaps I was a bit too excited. After I took a shower, I went and sat right behind Celeste. I told her I really hadn't realized her photography skills were so amazing, admiring the color grading on the photo. Pointing at the picture in front of her, I earnestly asked for advice on how she adjusted the parameters. Before she even had time to speak, her eyes landed on the screen. I had her contact name saved as Infertility. Excellent. Celeste didn't say a single word. She climbed directly onto my lap and started kissing me. I stammered, asking what she was doing. She remained silent, merely asking over and over what her precious Cassian thought he had done. Heaven is my witness. I genuinely had no idea what I had done. I asked her what I did. By then, she had already unbuttoned my shirt. Her seductive voice purred, asking what contact name her precious Cassian had saved her under, and if I had remembered it yet. I froze for 2 seconds before snapping back to reality, trying to explain that it was just from back then. But this woman never listened to explanations. Before I knew it, she had entangled her entire body around mine. I knew there was no escaping tonight. On Saturday, I didn't open my eyes until noon. There was no one beside me. I stretched languidly and, upon heading downstairs, found several dishes already set on the dining table. I deliberately pulled my chair out loudly. Celeste walked out of the kitchen carrying the final dish and sat next to me. She softly asked what was wrong, calling me baby. I didn't speak, my mind completely filled with the scenes from last night. She apologized, admitting she was bad last night and promising to take me to a hot spring a little later. I looked utterly confused, asking if there were even hot springs in the southern city. She told me to just eat properly and she would take me there later. I gave the woman a look but said nothing more. As we prepared to head out, I noticed Celeste's complexion looked a bit off. I asked if she was feeling unwell and why she looked so pale. I asked if she had a fever or if she had caught a cold. She brushed it off, saying she was fine and would be better in a bit. I insisted that a fever was a serious matter, worrying about what would happen if her brain got fried. At the Southern City People's Hospital, a place I rarely visited since I hardly ever got sick, I stood in the outpatient hall entirely clueless about which department to register for. She comforted me, telling me not to worry and to just head straight up to the 8th floor, as she had a friend there. I had no choice but to pull her along to the 8th floor clinic. Aria asked why she was at their hospital. Celeste stopped me, introducing her friend Aria from college, and then introduced me as her husband, Cassian. Aria enthusiastically greeted me as her brother-in-law. I cringed inwardly at the awkward title and urged her to examine Celeste properly, noting she had been perfectly fine yesterday but was suddenly like this today. Aria stated that only the patient could remain in the examination room, asking her brother-in-law to wait outside for a bit, assuring me that with her there, Celeste would absolutely be fine. Inside, Aria diagnosed her, stating she had been abstaining for too long and that the fever was from being pent up. She warned Celeste not to speak nonsense and absolutely forbade her from spouting garbage to Cassian. Celeste pointed at Aria defensively, but Aria continued, shouting out to me that her sister's fever was simply because she had abstained for too long. Celeste frantically tried to stop Aria from talking. I demanded to know what was going on, telling them not to hide anything from me. Aria reiterated that it was just her sister being pent up from abstaining too long and that it was no big deal. On the way back, I stared awkwardly out the window. It was incredibly humiliating. What did she mean abstaining too long? Clearly, last night, the two of us were together. Quack doctor. Absolute quack doctor. That night, lying in bed, I pondered my life choices. I browsed through articles on the dangers of prolonged abstinence in women. I was shocked that women actually suffered this many side effects from abstaining. It was terrifying. But then again, the two of us were married. What was there to be embarrassed about? It wasn't like we hadn't done it before. I couldn't just let her keep getting fevers. Thinking of this, I walked to the study door, confirmed she wasn't in a meeting, and walked straight in. I slowly approached Celeste, lifted her out of her chair, and sat her on the desk. I called her my wife, my arms slowly circling her slender waist. I asked if I hadn't tired her out yesterday. Her skirt was already quite short, and sitting down made it ride up a few more inches. I reasoned with her, saying we were married now, so we shouldn't be so shy and awkward about it. Furthermore, I added, it wasn't like we hadn't done it before, begging her to stop teasing me. My voice was low, but my ears turned unnaturally red. I asked her about the night of our first time. She called me a fool and revealed that actually, nothing had happened between us that night. I stared at her in shock, demanding to know why she had lied to me and declaring that I was angry. She let out a soft laugh, admitting she just wanted to bring me home. I swiftly stood up, left the room, and locked the master bedroom door from the inside. I swore I would never talk to that wretched woman again. Let her fever fry her brain for all I cared. Not only did she deceive my body, but she also deceived my feelings. Celeste was officially banned from the master bedroom. Meanwhile, the Southern City S group chat exploded. Someone announced they had a brother-in-law. Another asked what brother-in-law. Someone clarified that Aria's friend Celeste had a boyfriend. Someone else chimed in to expand their horizons, stating it wasn't a boyfriend, it was a husband. They asked if Celeste got married and started guessing who the lucky guy was, noting everyone knew him. They asked if it was that tall, handsome junior named Cassian. They praised Celeste for being awesome and actually kidnapping him home. They assumed she must be thrilled, realizing that was why she stopped hanging out with them, opting instead to cuddle affectionately with her husband all day. Someone corrected them, saying they guessed completely wrong. They revealed that Celeste actually came to their hospital today, and they didn't know what happened between them, but she actually gave herself a fever from holding back. The revelation that she gave herself a fever from holding back was something they swore they could mock her for at least 3 years. Reading message after message, Celeste's expression darkened, and she unhappily told them all to stop chatting, claiming she was in a bad mood. They asked if she wasn't with her brother-in-law. She confessed she had already been kicked out of the bedroom. Even though they didn't know why, they couldn't help but laugh, marveling that there was actually a man Celeste couldn't handle, praising the brother-in-law's might. The next day during class, I stared at Celeste until it gave her the creeps. Lucian nudged me, asking why I was staring at Professor Celeste like that, wondering if I had a crush on her. I scoffed, asking why I would like her, declaring that not a single woman was good. He asked if I had a personal grudge against her. I retorted that if this woman deducted 80% of his daily grade, he'd develop a personal grudge against her too. I was still plotting how to punish Celeste. A boy sitting in front of me started whispering, commenting on how amazing Professor Celeste's figure was, joking that her husband must be smothered to death. I really wanted to curse out loud. Her surname isn't Fu, she belongs to me. My surname is Sue. I wanted to shout that she was mine, and ask if I wasn't incredibly impressive. I glared triumphantly at the woman on the podium. Today, I was going to let her experience what it truly meant to be unable to stop once she started. Wretched woman, let's see if you learn your lesson. I only had one class today. After it ended, I headed straight home and swiftly placed an online order for the items I would need. Looking at the props in my hand, I muttered for Celeste to just wait. When she arrived home, none of the lights on the first floor were turned on. She assumed Cassian was throwing a tantrum and had run away from home. She called out that she was back. No one answered. A faint sliver of light peeked through the crack of the master bedroom door on the second floor. Thank goodness, her Cassian was home. Celeste changed into her pajamas and slowly walked into the master bedroom. Just as she was about to turn on the light, I ordered her not to turn on the light. She seemed to sense something and agreed, saying she would listen to her husband. I thought for a moment and asked if what she said that morning about letting me punish her however I wanted still counted. She stepped closer and asked how her husband wanted to punish her. I set the ground rules, telling her that no matter how I punished her, she couldn't resist. If she dared to resist, I would never forgive her. She agreed, leaving herself entirely at her husband's mercy for the night. I commanded her to close her eyes. She obediently closed them. After a long while, she felt me standing behind her, covering her eyes with something. Celeste was completely oblivious to what she was about to face. She teased, asking if her precious Cassian was feeling extra proactive today. I told her to just properly enjoy this unearned luxury and ordered her to lie down. She gasped, telling Cassian he wouldn't dare. I obviously wasn't going to be a good boy. Instead of getting down, I slowly started unbuttoning my shirt. Celeste felt like she was going crazy. I told Miss Celeste to just endure it well. After quite a long time had passed, I finally had enough of tossing her around. She pleaded, asking baby Cassian if he could let her go now. I hummed in agreement, deciding to let her go since she had been so well behaved. Blushing furiously, she fled into the bathroom at top speed. When she returned, I had already changed into my normal pajamas, but I still felt incredibly awkward. Initially, I thought that since Celeste and I had been married for so long, there was nothing to be embarrassed about. But ever since I discovered that we hadn't actually gone all the way, a strange, different feeling had sprouted in my heart. Celeste, of course, could see her baby Cassian's nervousness. She came forward and buried herself in my arms. She reassured me not to overthink it, promising that until I was completely ready, we wouldn't let those things happen. I turned my head away, declaring that from now on, nothing else was allowed, strictly limiting us to kissing and hugging. She smiled and agreed, promising to listen to her husband. When I woke up the next morning, Celeste was already changing clothes. I clearly saw the 2 distinct tear tracks on her wrists. Looking a bit unnatural, I awkwardly suggested that she try to wear long sleeves during class today. Otherwise, I would genuinely need to find a new planet to live on. Perhaps because we had tossed and turned for too long last night, I couldn't even lift my head during class. Lucian shoved my shoulder, telling me to wake up because the next class was Professor Celeste's. He demanded I tell the truth and asked if I had gotten a girlfriend. Hearing this, the sleepiness instantly vanished from my body. I denied it, claiming I had just gone to bed too late last night. He pointed out that it sounded like a guilty confession, as they hadn't even asked why I was so exhausted. I was doomed. I felt like an absolute idiot. Lucian threatened to let me off the hook for now, but warned that when we got back to the dorm at noon, I better confess everything. During class, some sharp-eyed students still noticed the marks on her wrists. The class chat exploded again. They asked if anyone saw the marks on Professor Celeste's wrists, wondering what kind of wild beast her husband was, noting how thrilling it was. I felt like my own nest had been raided. Returning to the dorm at noon, Lucien pinned me to the bed. Seeing this, I sighed helplessly, insisting that I really didn't have a girlfriend, but admitting I did have someone I liked. I sat up from the bed as they instantly started teasing me, celebrating that their Cassian had finally blossomed. They demanded to know who it was and if they knew her. I told them to stop asking, promising to introduce them to her when the time was right. I told them not to run away, but admitted to my brothers that I really couldn't go over the National Day holiday, telling them to have fun. For the National Day holiday, I chose to travel with Celeste. I had wanted to see the scenery of Dali, Yunnan, for a long time. To squeeze in an extra day of fun, I deliberately asked Celeste to book an early morning flight. I was so exhausted I just slept through the plane ride. She told me we were almost there, pointing at the 5-star hotel in front of us. I frowned, asking didn't we agree to stay in a bed and breakfast. She told me to be good, noting that B&Bs didn't have good soundproofing. I obviously knew exactly what she meant. I planned to rest properly today and go see the ocean tomorrow. That night, while I was lying in bed, scrolling through videos, Celeste started getting handsy again. In the next second, the room was dimly lit by only a few small lamps, and suggestive music began to play. I finally realized things weren't as simple as I had thought. I asked Celeste what she was doing, a bit afraid to look her in the eye. I didn't know if it was because the atmosphere was particularly magical today, but I felt myself losing control. She whispered that if I had any requests, Baby could ask. I denied having any. She countered that my body wouldn't lie, telling me to be a good boy and tell my wife if I really didn't want to. She then suggested letting my wife get closer and see if baby Cassian was lying. When I woke up the next day, I found Celeste still sleeping soundly in my arms. Recalling the events of last night, I couldn't believe this wretched woman had actually done that. I prepared to roll over and put some distance between us. Sensing my attempt to escape, she asked where I was going, mumbling that she was a bit dirty. The woman pulled herself even closer into my embrace. Was this even something that could be said out loud? Thinking about last night, I spoke up, asking Celeste if she had planned this all along before we even came. She hummed in agreement, admitting she had been planning it for a long time. I blamed her, saying I was supposed to go see the sea today, but look what time it was now. Pulling back the curtains, the air-high lake sparkled beautifully under the sunlight. Celeste fed a piece of fruit into my mouth and asked if I was satisfied with my wife's performance last night. I accused her of being thick-skinned. She brushed it off, asking what the big deal was, noting we had been married this long and asking if I was still shy. I told her to shut up or I really would ignore her. To reward her, I specially bought her a ring in Yunnan. I truly loved my wife so much. Over the next few days, Celeste took me out every day to eat, drink, and have fun. I had to admit, she was incredibly considerate. I didn't have to worry about a single thing while traveling, but I was puzzled. Ever since our first night in Yunnan, besides kissing and hugging, there had been no further progress. Even if she didn't want to, I did. We originally planned to fly back to the southern city on the last day of the holiday, but plans couldn't keep up with changes. Heavy rainstorms suspended flights on the final day, so Celeste changed our tickets and we went home a day early. The moment we got home, I immediately collapsed onto the sofa. Knowing I wasn't used to eating out all the time, Celeste immediately cooked all the dishes I had been craving over the past few days. I sighed, saying I had missed her cooking so much. She teased, surprised that I had learned how to act spoiled after just a few days away. That night, with Celeste in my arms, I gently rubbed her back. I felt a bit depressed. She snuggled deeper into my embrace. Frustrated, I announced I wasn't doing this anymore. She told me to be good and get some sleep. I shoved her away and sat alone on the edge of the bed. After a moment, sensing something was wrong, she quickly sat up and turned on the nightlight. Cradling my face in her hands, she looked at me and asked what was wrong, baby. I demanded to know if we were still living together or not. She asked what I meant by that, urging me to tell my wife what was wrong. It would have been better if she hadn't asked. The question only made me more depressed. Before, she was constantly handsy, leaving my heart fluttering and suspended in midair. But the past couple of days, she was suddenly acting like a pure, traditional housewife. She explained it wasn't that, saying that after that night, she thought I felt tired and unhappy, so she wanted to let me rest for a few more days. Naturally, I didn't believe her. She tightly gripped my hand and asked if I could feel it, assuring me she really loved me so much. I stuttered, caught off guard. She declared that since baby Cassian was being so proactive, I wasn't allowed to refuse her tonight. It was a sleepless night. Ever since reaching that great harmony of life with her, she had become incredibly dependent on me. I realized that a woman whose desires have been awakened is truly terrifying. Today at noon, Celeste had to work overtime in her office. After lunch, I packed a meal and brought it to her. The moment I walked into the office, she pinned me against the wall. I protested, telling her she couldn't kiss my neck. Suddenly remembering all those people on the school forum coveting my wife, I felt extremely displeased. Were they all blind? She was already wearing a diamond ring, yet those shameless people still tried to get close to her. Just thinking about it infuriated me. In the next second, I wrapped my arms around her slender waist, lowered my head, and bit directly onto her elegant neck. In no time at all, I left 3 distinct hickeys. I reminded her that she had a husband and told her she needed to protect herself, noting there were a lot of bad men out there right now. She smiled and agreed to listen to her husband's words. During physics class the next day, I was still dozing off. Why on earth were there 3 physics classes a week, and why were 2 of them early morning sessions? When the bell rang, before I even had time to look up, I heard the classroom erupt in constant cheers. The moment I raised my head, I truly wanted to leave this planet. This wretched woman was actually wearing a white dress, making those 3 hickeys look even more glaringly obvious. Some bold boy piped up. Celeste commanded everyone to be quiet, stating she had made her husband angry yesterday. Upon hearing this, my face turned black. She asked who could come up to the board and solve the problem. Cedric stood up from his seat and slowly walked to the podium. I looked up and stared at the white shirt Cedric was wearing. Everyone had eyes, and naturally, they all saw the hickey on Cedric's neck, along with that white shirt. Yet he just smiled faintly, staying completely silent. Given Celeste's explosive popularity at the university, by the time we went to the cafeteria for lunch, this incident had become the biggest news on campus. I ordered food, but had no appetite. Just then, I saw Cedric walk into the cafeteria. He deliberately pulled his collar back a bit, afraid people might miss the mark on his neck. When I got home after school, I stared at the braised prawns Celeste had made. I declared I wanted to eat instant noodles. She told me to be sensible, noting they had no nutritional value, and reminded me my stomach hadn't been well the past 2 days, so I shouldn't eat junk food. I was already in a terrible mood. I snapped, asking if I couldn't even eat instant noodles now. She had been busy in the lab all day, but seeing my bad mood, she turned around and went to the kitchen to cook me some instant noodles. When I came down after my shower, she had already placed the bowl on the table. I marveled at the luxury edition instant noodles, seeing the abundant toppings. She told me to eat slowly and not burn myself. Full and satisfied, my mood improved significantly. She asked me to tell her what happened today. I pushed my phone in front of her. Her expression grew uglier by the second. I suddenly felt I might have overreacted. She had been working so hard in the lab, yet came back at night to cook for me, and I had given her that kind of attitude. I told her I believed her, though my heart still felt a bit heavy. She rubbed my head and softly told me it was okay, and to leave it to her to handle. That night, I proactively hugged her. I asked my wife if she sometimes thought I was too childish. She replied no, asking her husband why he would think that. I requested she stay away from Cedric from now on. She nodded and promised to listen to her husband. Sunday's weather was beautiful, which lifted my spirits as well. I found a sunny spot on the first floor and spent the whole day drawing design drafts. As I walked past the study, Celeste had just hung up the phone. I asked if she was done working, suggesting we go for a walk. She reached up, pinched my cheek, and agreed. Recalling the phone call she just finished, I asked if I had interrupted her work. She said no, pausing for a moment before adding that her dad had just called to ask how we've been doing lately. This was the first time since we got married that I had heard her say the word dad. Only then did it strike me that we had been married for 3 months, and I hadn't even met my parents-in-law yet. I suggested we go visit mom and dad at their house another day. Otherwise, it would look really bad on my part. She agreed to go next weekend and mentioned she would introduce me to her friends as well. Even though it was just a normal conversation, I felt like I was finally experiencing the true feeling of living a married life. She suddenly seemed to remember something and told me Cedric's issue had been resolved, telling me not to worry. Actually, I had seen it at noon. Cedric had posted an apology on the school forum, specifically clarifying that he and Professor Celeste strictly had a teacher-student relationship. The dorm group chat completely blew up. They said they knew Professor Celeste wouldn't fall for a guy like Cedric, calling it shameless and asking how it was any different from being a mistress. See, my woman wasn't that kind of person. Her voice drifted over slowly from behind me, noting I was so quiet and asking if I had some dog outside. I spun around, shoving my phone under my pillow. I retorted, asking what she meant and if I was her dog outside. I asked how she could peek at my chats with my brothers and asked what else she saw. She asked if our group name was Nursing Home Watching Beauties or which handsome guy wants to live in a nursing home. I defended myself, saying I wasn't the one who named it. My hands restlessly caressed her waist. She leaned in, demanding kisses. I thought to myself that this was bad. In an instant, the room was filled with an ambiguous atmosphere. Another sleepless night. When I woke up the next morning, my right eyelid kept twitching. I had a feeling something was going to happen. I slept naturally until noon, as I had no morning classes. I only had an English and a physics class in the afternoon. Today was Lucien's birthday. The plan was to go out and celebrate right after the final class, which meant I probably wouldn't be coming home tonight. I asked if it was okay that I didn't come home tonight. She was about to refuse, but on second thought, realized that since we got married, I really hadn't gone out to have fun in a while. She agreed, telling me to be careful tonight. I cheered, thanking my wife and shouting "Long live the wife." She informed me that she had a forum meeting to attend during this afternoon's physics class. She said it would probably be a substitute teacher covering for her and told me to pay attention. The moment I stepped onto campus, I couldn't hold it in anymore. I announced to my brothers that Professor Celeste was going to a forum meeting this afternoon and a substitute was taking over physics. They said that was perfect, noting it wasn't her teaching, and the substitute was just there for one class. They said they wouldn't know anyone, so they definitely wouldn't take attendance. Someone asked if we were sure, wondering if we were being a bit too brave. Someone asked how I knew she was going to a meeting. I lied, saying I overheard her talking to another teacher on my way back. Another chimed in, saying it didn't matter how I knew, as long as the intel was solid. Someone mentioned they still had Elisa's ID card, noting they agreed she'd come find him at the gate after school to get it back. He suggested we go ahead and book the restaurant and cake, and he would meet up with us right after class. We teased that he was totally ditching us for a girl right now. He denied it, arguing that besides, if he didn't sign in, he could cover for us. We agreed, saying we would head out the moment class ended. We told Kieran to bring up the rear. Just outside the school gates, Lucien was still a bit worried. He asked if we were sure this was a good idea. I assured him, calling him bro, saying he was the birthday boy today, and the most important thing was for him to be happy and celebrate before walking into the bakery. Back in the classroom, Kieran was texting Elise to meet at the gate after class, explaining he had to go celebrate with us. The bell rang, and the class quieted down. A very familiar voice echoed through the room. We were doomed. They panicked in the chat, asking, "Didn't I say she was going to some meeting?" They frantically messaged, saying she never skips taking attendance. Because no one dared to skip her class, standing at the podium right now felt like seeing a ghost. Meanwhile, inside the bakery, the boys were eagerly watching the staff frost the freshly baked cake. Celeste asked if there were students who went to the restroom and hadn't come back yet. With one glance, she realized her husband and his good buddies were missing. She genuinely was supposed to attend the forum meeting. but the thought of not seeing me all night made her come to teach instead. By sheer coincidence, she had caught her own husband skipping class. She announced we wouldn't wait and would start the lecture. She stated the 3 students who were absent would be marked as skipping class, and as for whether they'd receive disciplinary action, she would see how they perform. Inside the bakery, we were completely oblivious. They praised me, saying I was a genius designer. They called me amazing. Basking in their compliments, I opened my phone to send Kieran the restaurant's location, only to see 99+ messages in the group chat. We were completely screwed. Professor Celeste had shown up to class, marked the 3 of us as skipping, and mentioned potential disciplinary action. I opened the photo in the chat, showing Celeste standing at the podium with a dark, furious expression. At the dinner table, I was entirely distracted. I apologized to my brothers, saying I dragged them all down. Roman waved it off helplessly. Because of this, no one really enjoyed the meal. Our plan of not returning until we were drunk was obviously scrapped. We dispersed early, around 9 p.m. I was planning to take a cab home and properly explain myself to Celeste. Just as I crossed the intersection, I saw her car parked by the side of the road. I walked over and got in. She didn't spare me a single glance. I awkwardly broke the silence, saying I could explain, and that I really thought she went to the meeting, noting it was Lucien's birthday. Her red lips were pressed tightly together, and she didn't say a word. This wretched woman was acting incredibly cold today. I confessed I was the one who dragged them out and asked her not to punish them, telling her to put all the blame on me. She scoffed, pointing out I couldn't even save myself, yet I was trying to play the hero and excuse others. Once we got home, I clung to her. I begged my wife, promising this was the first and last time. I offered her a plate of washed fruit, asking her to look at my face and not record their names. She dismissed me, telling me to move it, stating she had class tomorrow. I knew Celeste was a principled person. If she said she'd mark us absent, she'd enforce it. But for the sake of my brothers, I didn't mind suffering a bit. With that thought, I went to take a shower. Drying off, I gave myself a pep talk, telling myself my brother's safety depended entirely on me. Sticking to the plan, I walked out with a bath towel loosely wrapped around my waist. She stammered, asking why I wasn't wearing clothes. She glanced over before immediately lowering her head in embarrassment. I swiftly climbed into bed. I demanded she stop reading and look at me. She scolded me, telling me to go put my pajamas on and not be a hooligan. I retorted, asking how my wife could call me a hooligan. Before she could answer, I grabbed her hand and kissed it. She noted I was playing dirty, amused by my attempts to please her. I offered that she was the boss tonight, and she could punish me however she wanted. Flushed and thoroughly seduced, she sleepily murmured to me that the 3 of us better be at her office tomorrow morning. Early the next morning, the 3 of us stood neatly at the door of her office. She called us to come in. The moment Lucien walked in, he bowed 90 degrees and apologized. He started saying he was truly sorry, and that it was his birthday yesterday. She replied, wishing him a happy birthday. Those words completely stunned all of us. She lectured that regardless of whether she was substituting, what class it was, or what the reason was, none of those were excuses to skip class and go out. However, she noted that seeing as we usually performed well, especially Cassian, she wouldn't put this on our permanent records. She stated it would still be marked as skipping, and 5 points would be deducted from our daily performance grade. They cheered, thanking Professor Celeste and wishing her a long and peaceful life. But they had absolutely no idea how hard I had worked last night. Back in the classroom, they teased me, unaware that I had used every trick in the book to calm her down. I resolved to rest well for a few days to regain my manly vigor. But then, Celeste started feeling depressed. She hadn't hugged her Cassian in a week. She thought I only touched her when I needed a favor, and now that everything was fine, I was avoiding her and sleeping in the guest room. In her group chat, she vented her frustration. She messaged them to come out for drinks. They teased, asking what was wrong and if her pure, innocent student husband gave her the cold shoulder. She told her besties to stop talking, saying she needed their company and asking if they could come. That night, I came home to find her missing. I thought about calling her, figuring it would give her an out to come home. Aria answered the phone, telling me she was Aria. She explained Celeste drank too much, and they were bringing her back, noting they were almost there. I ran downstairs just as Aria's car pulled up to the gate. I scolded her as I supported her, asking why she drank so much she couldn't even find her way home. Arya called out that Celeste was in my hands and they were heading out. I thanked them and told them to be safe on the way back. I carried Celeste into the house. Looking at the woman on the sofa, I asked why she drank so much, noting it was my first time seeing her drunk. She reached up, wrapped her arms around my neck, and hugged me tightly. I asked, annoyed but amused, if she still knew who I was. She mumbled that I was her kissing hubby. I almost laughed out loud. I was about to stand up when she grabbed me. She begged her hubby not to be mad at her anymore, admitting she knew she was wrong and promising she wouldn't make things difficult for me at school anymore. I told her she wasn't allowed to drink like this again, warning her there were many bad people outside and she couldn't just hug anyone and act spoiled. She insisted I was her husband, stating she had liked me for so many years. She wouldn't mistake me for anyone else. I sighed, telling my wife she was truly confused, reminding her we had only been married for half a year. The next day, I didn't wake up until 10 a.m. As soon as I went downstairs, Celeste approached me holding a freshly fried egg. She asked her hubby if he was still mad, noting she recorded a video last night. She threatened that if I ever bullied her again, she would post it on the campus forum to show everyone what the aloof and beautiful Professor Celeste looked like at home. She proudly presented her heart-shaped fried egg, having prepared all my favorite breakfast foods on the table. Since I only had one class on Friday, I spent a long time wandering the mall, preparing to buy gifts for my visit to my parents-in-law. Feeling anxious, I carried the gifts home. When I opened the door, a loud voice boomed, asking if we were trying to start a rebellion, and if she had absolutely no say in this family. There stood my physics teacher of 3 years, and my lifelong idol. Celeste and Mr. Vance were huddled in the corner, trembling in fear. Aunt Fu turned around and saw the young man at the door, noting I looked even more handsome than when I was a kid. Aunt Fu was a world-class fashion designer and my idol since childhood. Celeste introduced them as her mom and dad. I stuttered, looking at Mr. Vance. I had been with Celeste for so long, and I never knew Mr. Vance was her father. I greeted Uncle Silas and Aunt Vivienne, telling them we were planning to visit them tomorrow. She praised Cassian for being such a sensible boy, before turning back to them. She asked the two of them, adding up to over 80 years old, if they ever thought about the consequences of their actions. She yelled that marriage is a massive event, and asked if it had nothing to do with her. I finally understood that Aunt Fu had just found out she had suddenly become a mother-in-law. I hurried forward to calm her down, asking Auntie not to be angry, explaining we just didn't know how to tell her. She told Cassian he was a good kid and didn't need to make excuses for these two. She stated this was entirely Celeste's fault. She yelled that they kept her completely in the dark, asking if that wasn't taking it too far, only telling her after they got the certificate. She added that this old fool helped her hide it. Celeste offered for Mom and Cassian to rest for a bit, saying Dad and she would cook. Her mom told her to get out of there. In my mind, Aunt Fu was supposed to be elegant and dignified. This was my first time seeing a scene like this. I started trying to find a topic, telling Aunt Fu I really loved design and had been a huge fan of hers since I was little. A natural extrovert was being violently forced into an introvert. Aunt Fu told Cassian their marriage was ill-considered on Celeste's part, assuring me she would discipline her for me. She told Celeste to bring Cassian home for a formal dinner tomorrow. Celeste agreed, telling Mom and Dad to have a safe trip back. Celeste felt like my eyes were piercing right through her, and she guiltily smoothed her hair. I demanded if Celeste had nothing to explain to me. She apologized to her hubby, saying she shouldn't have hidden it from me. I didn't say anything, turning and going alone to the studio to draw. But my mind was chaotic, and I couldn't focus on anything. I suddenly felt an immense amount of pressure. I had always assumed my in-laws were just ordinary university professors. But now, one was the chairman of the Huaxia group, and the other was an excellent world-renowned designer. Their family background and status were on a completely different level from mine. Celeste called out for Cassian to come have some fruit. Hearing no response, she pushed the door open to find me staring blankly at my desk. I told Celeste I didn't want to talk to her right now. She pleaded, saying she really didn't mean to hide it. I said I just realized the disappointing daughter Mr. Vance mentioned was her, and accused her of doing it on purpose just to watch me make a fool of myself. She quickly set the fruit plate aside and climbed into my lap. She apologized. In this relationship, Celeste truly lacked a sense of security. I stated coldly that liars must pay a price, and given her extremely poor behavior, she would be sleeping alone for the foreseeable future. Panic washed over her face, and she stood up abruptly. I didn't give her a chance to explain. I went straight to the bedroom and locked the door. The next day, following the plan, we went to the Fu family villa. I greeted Mom and Dad, saying these were the gifts I prepared for them. I was so nervous yesterday, I didn't even know what to call them. Celeste and Mr. Vance exchanged a glance. Their 4 dark circles made it obvious they had both been kicked out of their bedrooms and hadn't slept well. Aunt Fu smiled warmly, telling me to come in and there was no need for gifts, noting the food was ready and asking if I was hungry. She told Cassian she would tell him that Celeste is older than me, but sometimes she acts like a child, and her temper is awful. She told me if she goes too far, to tell her, and she'll teach her a lesson. She added that if it doesn't work out, Mom will introduce me to someone even better. I glanced up at the pitiful Celeste sitting opposite me. After dinner, Aunt Fu dragged me into her secret studio, and we didn't come out for the entire afternoon. Celeste tried eavesdropping at the door multiple times, but the soundproofing was too good and she heard nothing. Her dad scolded her, asking if she couldn't just sit still for a while, noting they traded places and asking if she was anxious. It wasn't until 7 p.m. that we emerged from the room. I was holding a box in my arms. Celeste tried to come over and see what it was, but I surprisingly dodged her. The drive back took almost an hour, and I spent the entire time staring at my phone, smiling foolishly. She wanted to ask what I was looking at, but stubbornly stayed silent. Once we got home, Celeste couldn't take it anymore and cornered me at the door. She asked Cassian what exactly her mom said to me, asking if I was really going to swap her for someone better. I asked if she knew a girl named Aurora. She yelled no, stating Aurora is her mom's best friend's daughter. She noted Aurora is 1.7 meters tall and on the dance team, hitting every single one of my preferences. She demanded to know why her. I countered, asking who told her to lie to me, stating I just got to know her and never said I was going to be with her. She yelled that I was already thinking about being with her, noting we had only been married for half a year and asking if I was tired of her already. I teased, saying I heard from Auntie that Aurora is 1.7 meters tall and dances, so her figure must be incredible. She shrieked, forbidding me from calling her sister Aurora. Walking upstairs, I turned back and told Professor Celeste she should focus on preparing her lessons in the study, and I would be enjoying the bedroom all to myself. Calling her Professor Celeste while calling someone else sister completely infuriated her. During class, Celeste's voice sounded muffled, and her usual radiant complexion was gone. It was obvious she hadn't slept well and caught a cold. She felt terrible all day and constantly checked her phone, but there were no messages from her husband. She thought miserably if her husband really didn't want her anymore, telling herself that couldn't be. On my way home that afternoon, I bought some cold medicine, brewed it, and brought it to her. I instructed her to drink it and not let it get worse. She begged her hubby not to abandon her, promising she would never make things difficult for me at school again and would never hide anything from me. I reassured her I wasn't abandoning her, telling her to hurry up and drink her medicine. I promised to make her a bowl of noodles, saying she would feel better after she ate and slept. I went and cooked a bowl of Yangchun noodles, filling the house with a delicious aroma. Looking at the bowl of noodles, Celeste was moved to tears. She asked her hubby if he had really forgiven her, or if he just pitied her because she was sick. I promised I really forgave her, telling her no more lying to me. She practically inhaled the noodles and then cuddled up to sleep. She curled up against me like a little cat. She mumbled that she didn't sleep well for the past few days and was so scared I really didn't want her anymore. I asked Celeste gently if she could please try not to be so insecure. I explained I just wanted some quiet time in the studio that day, and she immediately jumped to asking if I wanted to leave her. I asked if our relationship was really that fragile. I told Celeste I truly liked her and loved her so much, telling her to stop overthinking everything, okay? The next day, when Celeste came home, she saw I had bought a safe for the house. I proudly asked how it was, noting I locked all the gifts Mom gave me yesterday inside. I told her Mom said the jade pendant was a family heirloom, and she handed over real estate deeds and the title to her studio to me. I admitted I initially didn't want them, but Mom forced them on me. She noted that basically, every valuable thing in the Fu family was now in the hands of me and Mom. She added that she and Dad had nothing left but their salary cards. That night, Celeste's friends invited her out to a bar. She was very open about it, though I was a bit nervous before we left. She comforted me, telling me not to be nervous, and that they were really easy to get along with. When we arrived at the private room, only Aria and Camille were there. Camille cheered, "Wow, so this is the brother-in-law," introducing herself as Camille and noting I had already met Aria. I barely recognized her. Who would have thought the strictly professional Dr. Aria in a white coat would be standing in front of me wearing a tight pink dress? A new voice announced she was here, saying she couldn't possibly be late to meet the brother-in-law. Looking at Valeria standing before me, I felt a sense of unreality. Of course I knew her. She was the most popular girl in the high school section of our school back then. Valeria teased, saying brother-in-law. That's not right. She noted the prettiest girl in school was obviously their Celeste. She asked, "Don't tell me you didn't know Celeste back then?" They laughed, agreeing that she only cared about studying back then, so it was normal I wouldn't know her. Everyone chuckled, but I guiltily glanced at Celeste. Celeste went to my high school too? We were dead. The woman had a dark look on her face again. Valeria did this on purpose. I knew Celeste too well. She wasn't angry because I didn't know we went to the same school. She was angry because I remembered someone else but not her. This wretched woman loved to get jealous. When the bill came, a waiter brought it over for a signature. Valeria signed it. I caught a glimpse of her handwriting. It was terrible. People really do change. Her handwriting used to be clearly beautiful. Celeste felt deeply hurt. Her husband had remembered the high school beauty queen since middle school. After sitting a while longer, she made an excuse and dragged me home. As soon as we got back, I immediately started trying to appease her. I told my wife I really had no idea she went to the same school, noting we had been married this long and she never mentioned it. She asked if I found Valeria prettier than her. I assured her that was impossible, calling her a player. I told her to keep her distance from her. She said she didn't like judging people carelessly, but asked how I knew she was a player. I replied she plays with men's feelings and wasn't a good person. I added that if her letters weren't still at my old house, I'd honestly burn them. But I couldn't keep things bottled up. That night in bed, tossing and turning, I finally burst. I told Celeste I couldn't hold it in anymore. I said I needed to tell her something, but asked her not to get mad. She asked what was wrong. I confessed I used to have a crush on Valeria. Her eyes widened in shock, but before she could speak, I stopped her. I begged her to listen to my explanation, noting I was in 8th grade and they were seniors. I explained she suddenly started sending me breakfast and writing me letters, so I thought she liked me. I promised I still had the letters at my old house, and next time I went back, I would burn them. Her expression remained grave. I pleaded with my wife, saying I was just young back then. She finally spoke, telling Cassian the person who did all that back then was actually her. She explained she just asked Valeria to deliver the things for her. I froze in shock. She asked if I liked the words and emotions in the letters, or if I liked her as a person. I insisted it was the letters, of course. I told Celeste I only liked her. She felt incredibly conflicted. She thought this idiot didn't check the signature when he read the letters. It wasn't Cassian's fault. It was clearly that errand runner Valeria's fault. Furious, Celeste opened her phone, kicked the instigator out of the group chat, and unilaterally deleted Valeria's contact. Seeing the cold red exclamation mark indicating she was blocked, Valeria felt more wronged than anyone. Less than 5 minutes later, Valeria received intel from Aria. She told her she would let her die knowing the truth, stating brother-in-law said she plays with men's feelings, so Celeste wasn't allowed to hang out with her anymore. Valeria was shocked. She yelled, asking what she meant and when she had ever played with men's feelings. She stated she was 27, perpetually single, and the only guy she had ever liked was overseas and still ignored her, asking how she was suddenly a player. Ever since Celeste converted the first-floor guest room into my studio, I rarely went to her study. Today, she was working overtime at school, and I was bored all morning. At noon, she called and asked me to go to the study and email her some documents. Out of boredom, I read a book in there for a while. As I was leaving, I accidentally kicked the desk, and a vintage tin box tumbled out of the adjacent cabinet. I knew the things in her study were important to her, so I scrambled to pick it up and put it back. Some of the contents had spilled out. They were all letters. I resisted the urge to read them. At dinner, I was distracted, entirely consumed by wondering who those letters were for. She placed a bowl of soup in front of me. She asked what was wrong with Cassian, and if I was feeling unwell. Snapping back, I met her concerned gaze and told her about the incident in the study. I noticed her expression instantly turned peculiar. I clarified to Celeste that I didn't read the letters. She hummed softly. I asked if they were very important to her. She thought for a moment and said they weren't important anymore. I thought to myself that I wasn't stupid. If they weren't important anymore, that meant they used to be very important. She must have really loved that boy. I aggressively stabbed at the fish on my plate. She couldn't help but laugh out loud. She asked her hubby if he was jealous, and if he was afraid she liked another man. My inner jar of vinegar felt like it was going to explode, yet I stubbornly replied that it was fine if she did. I asked if I was that petty, stating it was just a few letters, and besides, she was my wife now. I simultaneously felt I was indeed being incredibly petty. Just the thought of her liking another man made even the soup in my bowl taste sour. I irritably set down my chopsticks. Seeing through my tough facade, she didn't bother explaining further and leisurely continued eating. Recently, Celeste noticed I was always sitting in the studio spacing out, with no time to be intimate with her. She thought that wouldn't do. Over time, it would affect her relationship with her dear husband. Carrying a plate of grapes, she walked into the studio and slipped into my lap. She coaxed baby Cassian, asking why he was unhappy and urging him to tell his wife. She snuggled against my chest, acting spoiled. I rubbed her little head and explained my draft for the design competition still wasn't finished. She suggested her hubby send the draft to Mom and have her look at it. Normally, I would ask my mother-in-law for professional advice, and I had indeed improved immensely over the past 2 months. But she was a judge for this competition. Having her edit my submission would be unfair to others. I refused, stating Mom was a judge for this competition, and people would say I pulled strings. She smiled sweetly, saying she didn't expect her husband to be so righteous. I sighed, mentioning I knew an alumnus who had finished their draft ages ago, while I was still agonizing over color saturation, feeling like I was always a step behind everyone else. She comforted me, stating being fast didn't mean it was good. She noted art requires meticulous crafting and suggested if I was stuck, we could go for a walk. She said taking it slow was fine and asked how about we go to a hot spring this weekend. I nodded fondly. Thrilled by my agreement, she kissed my cheek several times. She declared it a reward for being willing to go out and relax, asking what I wanted to eat so she could cook it. I requested she make her specialty, cola chicken wings. She teased that I had to reward her tonight too. As soon as Friday's classes ended, we drove straight from school. I sneaked into the car suspiciously. She shot me a reproachful look. She asked her hubby when exactly we could go public. I told her as soon as I graduated, we would go public. I asked my good wife to endure it just a little longer. The hot spring was inside a luxuriously decorated hotel. Upon arrival, a receptionist immediately guided us to our room. I leaned down and whispered in her ear, calling her wife and praising her advanced arrangements as so thoughtful and considerate. She casually replied this was Mr. Vance's hotel. I was startled, but then calmly accepted it. It wasn't surprising that Mr. Vance owned a grand hotel. I asked if that meant we didn't have to pay. She replied that as long as I performed well tonight, it was free forever. I was truly speechless with Celeste. I wondered if she had a single normal thought in her head. She countered that she was only indecent when she was with me. That night, while I was taking a shower, Celeste went downstairs to grab our late-night snack, only to be spotted by Cedric, who was there for a date. Remembering how the forum incident had humiliated him, he decided he had to seize this opportunity to take her down. After grabbing the food, Celeste noticed a bakery across the street. It was late, so it took a while, and after paying, her phone died. Sometime later, carrying the cake, she hurried back to the hotel. Just as she stepped out of the elevator, she heard a commotion. Peeking through the crowd, she saw me standing in the doorway with wet hair, a bright red welt on my forehead. She shoved past the security guards, dropping the cake on the floor. She cried out for her hubby. Seeing Celeste return, I immediately grabbed her arm. I demanded to know where she went and why her phone was off. Smart as she was, she apologized to her hubby, explaining she went to buy small cakes and her phone died. The manager standing nearby was trembling. He stammered, calling her boss Celeste, explaining someone sneaked into her room and accidentally injured the son-in-law. Celeste reached up, brushing my damp hair aside, her face full of worry. She asked Cassian what happened. Wincing in pain, I explained that after showering, I heard a noise and assumed it was her returning, so I didn't pay attention. I said when I walked out, I saw that bastard Cedric lying naked on the bed. I told her I was furious and tried to beat him up. Her face darkened by the second. She asked if I got hit with a water glass. I assured my wife I didn't lose the fight and had beaten him too, pointing out that given the state he was in, he probably couldn't even stand up. She lightly touched the swollen bump on my forehead, her eyes instantly reddening and her voice trembling. I grasped her hand, squeezing her fingertips to comfort her. I told her it was fine, just a minor injury, and that I didn't let him get away with it either. The manager nervously added, calling her boss Celeste, that they had already called the police and pulled the security footage. He explained Cedric sneaked onto the floor while the cleaners were working and barged into the room. He stated they'd take full responsibility, and the hotel would cover all medical and related expenses. Her eyes turned as cold as ice, entirely different from her usual self. She asked if they could afford to take responsibility. She listed her demands. First, strictly audit hotel security and fire all negligent staff. Second, hand the footage and all evidence over to the police, stating she was suing him for trespassing and intentional assault and wanted him rotting in a cell. Third, prepare the paperwork for his expulsion from the university, which she would personally deliver to the president. The police arrived quickly. Cedric was still stubbornly claiming he knew Celeste and was just waiting for her, saying I had misunderstood. Celeste threw the evidence on her phone directly at his face. He instantly withered and was taken away. After the doctor treated my wound, she blamed herself, saying if she hadn't gone down for cake and her phone hadn't died, this wouldn't have happened. I comforted her, saying it had nothing to do with her, and it was just that bastard courting his own death. I added that besides, she just wanted to buy me cake, so I felt so sweet inside. She buried her face in my chest, her voice muffled as she mourned the ruined cake she had wanted me to try. I laughed, saying it was fine, and next time we would buy 10 or 8 and eat until we burst. That night, she held my hand tightly, sleeping fitfully, waking at the slightest noise. I held her close and whispered in her ear not to be afraid, saying I was here and no one would ever bully her again. She murmured a sleepy response and burrowed even tighter into my embrace. Early the next morning, we returned to the southern city. Cedric's case was resolved quickly. With irrefutable evidence of trespassing and intentional assault, the university swiftly issued a notice expelling him. His little clever schemes had ultimately caused him to drop a rock on his own feet. That's the fate of bad people. With Cedric dealt with, my mind was finally at ease, and I threw myself back into creating my design draft. Every day, Celeste stayed by my side, bringing me tea and water, peeling fruit for me. When I was stuck, she accompanied me for walks in the park, enjoying the breeze by the river and discussing colors and composition with me. Having her by my side made me feel incredibly grounded, and my thoughts grew clearer. My mother-in-law, knowing I was entering the competition, specifically called to say she wouldn't play favorites, but offered to give me professional advice. After thinking it over, I declined. I told Mom I wanted to win relying on my own abilities, without people saying I pulled strings, and even if I didn't win, I would have done my best. Half a month later, my draft was finally finished. Looking at the artwork on the paper, my heart swelled with accomplishment. It was a painting of Celeste and me by the air-high lake. She was holding my hand, her smile as beautiful as a painting, with the sparkling lake and azure sky behind us. The color saturation was perfect, and every stroke hid my deep love for her. When she saw the draft, her eyes lit up. She hugged me and kissed me, praising how beautiful it was and declaring it would definitely win gold. I pinched her cheek, hoping her words would come true. After submitting, the long wait began. I refreshed the competition website every day, both expectant and nervous. She always smiled and comforted me. Finally, the results were announced. I won the gold award. The moment I saw the result, I was too excited to speak. I swept her up in a hug and spun her around multiple times. She threw her arms around my neck, laughing, and kissed my face over and over. My parents-in-law also called immediately to congratulate me. With the prize money from the gold award, the very first thing I did was go to a jewelry store to pick out a diamond ring for her. It wasn't some exceptionally expensive design, but I had chosen it meticulously. The inside was engraved with our names, Cassian and Celeste. That night when I got home, I pulled out the ring, dropped to one knee, and held it up to her. I spoke earnestly, telling Celeste that when we flash married, I gave her nothing. No proposal, no ring, not even a proper wedding. I said my feelings for her were never just a whim. I told her I realized I love her more and more every day, and it absolutely must be her for the rest of my life. I asked if she would marry me, specifying not the flash marriage kind, but the earnest, proper kind. She stood there, tears streaming down her face, nodding and choking back sobs as she said she would. She called my name, Cassian, and said she would. I slipped the ring onto her finger. I told her from now on, this ring has her firmly locked down, and she shouldn't even think about running away in this lifetime. She promised she wouldn't run and would never run away in this lifetime. In the following days, we began preparing for the wedding. She was bustling around, even more enthusiastic than we were. My mother-in-law personally designed our wedding dress and suit. The dress was white, intricately embroidered with crushed pearls and lace, making Celeste look like a fairy. The suit was a custom-tailored black piece that fit me perfectly. My father-in-law took charge of arranging the venue and guests, handling everything flawlessly. My brothers also ran themselves ragged. Lucian became the head groomsman, while Roman and Kieran hustled to help decorate the bridal suite and buy wedding candies. The wedding was set for graduation day. The university campus was filled with the joyful laughter of graduating students, the very place where our story began. On the day of the wedding, the sun was shining bright and the breeze was gentle. Wearing the dress her mother designed, Celeste walked toward me step by step, arm in arm with her father. A gentle smile graced her face, and her eyes held only me. In that moment, I felt the entire world go quiet, and my eyes held only her. Her father placed her hand in mine, patted my shoulder, and sternly warned, telling the kid he was entrusting Celeste to me, and if I dared bully her, he wouldn't let me off the hook. As the best man, Lucien gave a speech on stage, recounting the hilarious moments between us, from me calling her wife in class, to getting caught skipping, to the incident with Cedric, leaving everyone roaring with laughter. Celeste leaned against me, her eyes curving into happy crescents. When exchanging rings, she slipped a matching band onto my finger and softly said, "Cassian, for the rest of our lives, please guide me." I squeezed her hand tight, pressed a kiss to her forehead, and replied, "Celeste, for the rest of our lives, we'll walk together." After the ceremony, dressed in our wedding attire, we strolled through the university campus. Everything looked the same, except the person beside me was now the one I would spend my entire life with. Classmates saw us and cheerfully yelled, "Happy newlywed life." She smiled back, clutching my arm, resting her head on my shoulder. The sunlight spilled over us, warm and beautiful. I looked down at her and softly asked if she knew. I explained that when I first heard Mr. Vance had resigned, I was overjoyed, thinking I finally didn't have to make up my physics homework. I said I never expected that my flash marriage wife would turn out to be my physics teacher. Back then, I thought I had run into the most absurd thing in the world. She asked if I still thought it was absurd now. I gently pinched her cheek, lowered my head to kiss her lips, and earnestly replied, "Not at all." I said it wasn't absurd in the slightest, calling it the luckiest encounter of my life. Through all the twists and turns, it turned out my destiny was always meant to be her. From the suddenness of our flash marriage, to the hilarious student-teacher dynamic, and finally to our deeply devoted partnership, our story began as an accident and culminated in profound love. For the rest of our lives, through the passing springs and autumns, the cold winters and hot summers, I will hold her hand and keep walking forward, never to be separated again. And all those petty arguments and hilarious, awkward moments will forever become the most precious memories of our lives, tucked safely in our hearts, warming us for a lifetime.